rich young man desires eternal life, and he is not willing to make the sacrifice. And I think there's a reason, the reason that the church has chosen this text is because Columba himself came from a well-to-do background. But he did give up everything. He seemed to give up everything, actually, as he became a monk. But the monk, with being in a monastery, there was education, he was able to write, and actually he grew in power and authority. So he eventually copied, I think it was, one of the famous Bibles of Ireland without permission, and drew the wrath of the abbot of the time. And there was someone, I can't remember the exact story, but as a result there was fighting and people were killed, as I mentioned earlier on. And it was as a result of that that Columba left Ireland to go to Scotland. And here we see, in a sense, Columba maybe given a wake-up call. He'd already given his life over to the Lord by becoming a monk. And even in our vocation, we can say yes to the Lord, and start off with enthusiasm, but then over time that enthusiasm can wane, and then we can start to pick up bad habits, and we can start to drift off, and our vocation becomes something else. And it's less about God and more about ourselves. And this whole situation must have been a wake-up call for Columba, where he saw where he had gone and how he needed to change. And so this time he once again gave up everything, and not just possessions, but his whole land, the people he was with. He abandoned everything to go on a pilgrimage for Christ, peregrinatio pro Christo. Pro Christi, I think, is the Latin. And people in the Legion of Mary will recognize that phrase, because that's what legionaries do. They go on pilgrimage for Christ to evangelize. And so Columba spent the rest of his life, gave everything, abandoned everything, so that he could take the message of the gospel to others. Was it easy? Definitely not. And he did suffer, as did his disciples, in doing it. But suffering, as St. Paul tells us, is part of our vocation. There is no love without sacrifice. There is no love without sacrifice. When we give of ourselves for others. And so we attempt to do this in our service of God and in our service of one another.